good morning, everybody. Welcome to Sunrise today. I'm Chamberlain. So,
good morning. It's a Thursday morning. Yes, I know you're counting down to Christmas. Good morning and welcome. I'm Maokwe Yusuf.
I'd like you to do a bit of a mathematics today. Today is 12/12 in the year 2024. So, welcome to the program. I'm Ayo Makinde.
So what's the mathematics?
It's as even as they come. You know, when you're teaching your kids odd and even numbers, they suddenly begin to rack your head, you know, mommy, which one is odd, which one is even? So it's as even as they come. 12/12, 2024. Amen. What do you think?
I just hope that the pocket will even out at the end of the day on the 25th.
Amen.
On the 25th. I think that's the kind of mathematics I like to do, Ayo. None other. In a relaxed manner, anyway. Well, we're showing you Kano City this morning, everybody, and having a look at the scenery. Who knows? In a couple of days, they might also begin to perhaps just get into that holiday mood, depending on what part of the country that you are in. But of course, everybody's expected to also just take your foot off the gas if you're not on essential services, to ensure that things go well. And today, I saw some federal city officials also stopping people, and I thought, but they're on their way to work. And can people be a little bit more sensitive before that scenario, that slapping video that Ayo talked about happens again? Oh dear, but anyway, guys.
Yeah, but people need to learn. I mean, if people are driving recklessly, I sometimes wonder, because on my way to work sometimes, I see some people driving really recklessly, endangering the lives of others. And I sometimes wish that, you know, we had FRSC, you know, positioned in strategic parts of the, you know, of that particular stretch of road I travel every morning. And I sometimes wish that, you know, when they see people like that, they can actually maybe signal the next stop to say there's this vehicle, you know, so and so, plate number, blah, blah, blah. Make sure you stop that person.
But that's not what I see happen.
Because you cannot endanger. Guess what? On my way to work this morning, I saw an accident. Somebody had already hit, and guess who they hit? The Nigerian army. They hit their vehicle. And FRSC officials were there trying to sort out the situation. So, I mean, accidents happen anytime. And yesterday, I think the FRSC launched a particular campaign in partnership with a beer company, I think, to try and tell people to remember not to drink and drive this season. I don't think the person who was on the wheel this morning was drunk, though, because it might be a little too early. But you never can tell, and this campaign has to start now. Is a season of merriment. People think, you know, well, you drink, please do not be too manly to say, look, I think I might be a bit high. I cannot drive my vehicle at this time. You must put the safety of other people. It's the festive season. We're not trying to lose lives. We're trying to gain them in this season. So, yes, FRSC officials might be inconvenient, but I think that if they do see people driving recklessly, endangering the lives of others, by all means, stop them. Doesn't matter. You know, wherever it is they're rushing to, they should learn to calm down. Sorry, we're talking about Kano. See what you've done to me, Chamberlain.
It's not me, it's FRSC that did it.
Chamberlain, see what we're talking. We're talking about Kano. I was supposed to be talking about the beautiful city of Kano. And talking about Kano, you know, something remarkable.
It wasn't me.
It was you. Something remarkable happened recently when UNESCO recognized the Doba of Kano City as an intangible heritage, and I think they're recognizing that, and I think that's something very worthwhile. So the people of Kano, I mean, certainly have that one to you know, hold on to as something that they can continue to celebrate through the ages. That this has lasted centuries, and they've handed it down from generation to generation, and we today are enjoying the benefits. And I think everybody from Nigeria can take pride in that. So yes, we're bringing you visuals of the ancient city. It's not so ancient when you look at these visuals. It certainly has modernized. Those who know a little bit about the history of Kano will tell you about the walls around the walls around the city of Kano itself. But now you're beginning to see this sort of highlights, this interchange here, painted boldly in red, mark of the political movement currently in power in the state. You'll see a number of other highlights around the city, showing its movement towards urbanization and regeneration and, moving in with the times, but at the same time still preserving the essence of its tradition and what it was known for and what it is still known for as the commercial nerve center in the northern region of Nigeria. I don't know if my dear colleague, don't say please, Marco, isn't this line getting old about him seeing the movie? It is him I should ask. Isn't this line getting old about you always seeing the movie? But who knows? I'm sure Kannywood has a lot of this particular visual in its movie set.
I'm glad that you mentioned Kannywood. I'm glad that you mentioned Kannywood, sincerely, Marco. And since it's one of the things that I actually wonder, wait, can we feature them a little more frequently on television so that everyone knows that there is a very vibrant movie industry in the north of Nigeria, and Kannywood is certainly the face of it. But I mean, when you also look at some other things, I mean, you look at the fact that you talked about the commercial nerve center, a major commercial city in the north. It is also an industrial center. I remember that video that went viral some time ago of a young man who was saying that most of the so-called Italian leather actually originate from northern Nigeria. And of course, you can be sure that it's somewhere here some of it will probably originate from the city of Kano. And you also know that Kano is a major dealer in textile making. And all of these things that you see on your screen right now, they are offshoots of the industrial nature and the commercial capacity of northern Nigeria. And you can be sure that most of the things consumed in southern Nigeria come from the north. A good number of them come from this city of Kano. And look, there are some things you just can't take away when it comes to Kano. So many, many things that you can't take away when it comes to Kano City. So the commerce and trade, the beautiful population, traditional festivals in the north, and then don't forget the arts and craftsmanship of northern Nigeria. Kano City is a major dealer right there. And please, you can't have these kind of visuals every morning and think of poverty. Can you?
And if they decide to multitask, so they might say, okay, well, that's it. Let's take you through some of the dailies we've got for you this morning. Have a look. If you experienced it yesterday, it's no surprise it's on the front pages this morning. This Nigeria has powerless grid collapses again, 12 times in 12 months. Fixed power sector to drive industrial growth. AFDB advises Nigeria will add 150 megawatts to power grid by year-end, says Minister Adelabu. The details on the inside pages. Daily Independent follows suit, will add 150 megawatts of electricity to grid before year-end. According to FG, national grid collapses 12th time in 2024. The front page of Daily Times has Nigeria's power minister updates on Siemens project, renewable energy ties with Germany. The details of that story you'll find on the inside pages of the paper this morning. Also in the news, tax reform bills. Nigerian Tribune, framework to check abuse of VAT spending in place. Stories on page 3 lists education, health, security, unemployment among priorities. Also on the front page of the Nigerian News Direct, tax reforms, why Supreme Court must not rule in favor of states. Oyedele says decentralizing VAT collection will have revenue for all states. Nigeria on threshold of fundamental economic reform through tax bills. That's coming from the minister. Find the details on page 7 of the paper this morning. Vanguard newspaper has this one. Varsity education in tatters. Lecturers can't fuel cars, sleep in offices to cut costs. Ride bicycles in office, abandon higher degree programs. We're dying. Pay us living wages. ASU Konwa.
make lecturers happy, as according to parents. Their welfare are concerned, according to FG. We bear the brunt, that's coming from the students. The details on page 14. Daily Trust. Reps probe customs over smuggling brutality at borders. The details on the inside pages. The Guardian newspaper, ahead of 2027, future of opposition uncertain as politicians begin realignment. Story is on page 6 of the paper this morning. If you look at the front page of New Telegraph, Allied's went to that national security strategy of 2019, which focused, or supposedly focused, on a more people-centric as opposed to state-centric security. What is playing out right now? Is this state-centric or citizen-centric? I guess the questions are there. But on the front page of The Guardian this morning is something that we have been talking about for a while, talking about security, but more of food security. It's on the front page of The Guardian, somewhere at the bottom of the page, where it talks about experts worry over 40% post-harvest losses. The Guardian newspaper has a picture of the Minister of Agriculture right there. At the bottom of the page, it's highlighted in blue. And the natural question that came up, we've been talking about this for a long time. And now for some experts, they would also say that there is a likelihood that the numbers actually is way beyond, it's more than 40%. For some would claim 50%, some would claim 60%, depending on the crop that we are talking about, or depending on the farm produce that we are talking about. Now, this is in relation to what they call the National Agricultural Extension Service Bill, which expectedly would help farmers to get more information about how to prevent or reduce post-harvest losses, inclusion of technology and all those things. This is all talk. We spoke with the Minister of State for Agriculture earlier in the week, and we heard some lofty ideas. What Nigerians, I believe, would like to see is something that Chamberlain said earlier. The market should align with our pockets. Yes, forget the fact that they all both ended with cats. The market should align with the people's pockets in a way that they're happy to go to the market, purchase some things, and be happy that they got value for money, and not just because things are expensive. You buy something in Kano, that we talked about earlier, it's X amount of money. But by the time it gets to Abuja, gets to Lagos, gets to Port Harcourt, it's like 300% higher in price. Why? What is the reason? All these are, that's beside the fact that there is post losses. So there is the cost of logistics of moving these things, and then there is the cost of the post-harvest losses that the farmers will naturally put on the products. The entire value chain of our agricultural support services need to be checked in order to ensure that we are not just food sufficient, but we are actually food sustainable. I don't know if that's part of what we'll be talking about on Business Morning on Sunrise Daily this morning. It's also, of course, talking about food security, availability or affordability. That's going to be on Business Morning on Sunrise Daily at 10 o'clock this morning. And Eni John McQuarrie, my colleague, is going to be taking you through that. In the meantime, let's take a short break. When we return, it's time to get down to business.
International Anti-Corruption Day, the United Nations Office on Drugs and Crime is meeting with officials of the Federal Ministry of Youth Development to unveil a strategy that will increase the involvement of young people in the fight against corruption. The theme for this year's commemoration is Uniting with Youth Against Corruption, Shaping Tomorrow's Integrity, and this necessitated the need for the launch of the Youth Help Desk initiative.
Our recent national corruption survey reveals encouraging signs of progress. An impressive 70% of Nigerians, including our youth, have refused to pay bribe at least occasions. This statistic is not just a number, it represents a growing culture of integrity and resistance against corruption.
The Minister of Youth Development laments the statistics of young persons denied justice in the nation's corrections facilities and highlights efforts by the ministry to address the issue.
Young people face systematically delay in getting justice and growing involved in the youth criminal activities. A large numbers of our pensioners are under the age of 35. They're in the prison, and many have been in jail without trial for years.
He also announced a setup for Youth Help Desk as a platform for youths to report cases of corruption and seek help.
We have made up our mind to close the gap in establishing the first step of it, which is the Nigerian Youth Help Desk. It is a platform where they can report cases of corruption, seek justice, and receive help in whichever areas, just to make them live a decent life.
The Help Desk platform comprises several initiatives designed to reach young people across all states, including the Federal Capital Territory, to promote awareness on the ills of corruption and the need for young Nigerians to be part of the solution. Benny Ark, Channels Television News.
All right, welcome back to Sunrise Daily. So those are some of the issues we'll speak about and a lot more on the program here today. So we're joined with Mr. Sheikh Toure. He is the representative of United Nations Office on Drugs and Crime here in Nigeria. Bonjour, monsieur.
Bonjour. Bonjour.
That came from nowhere. I didn't plan that.
I believe that's where it will end.
Don't be surprised.
That shouldn't be surprised, okay?
Expect the unexpected. This is flow like that.
If you say so.
Good to have you on today.
Thank you for having me.
You're new in the country. I mean, well, technically, because, I mean, you've been here before, but so far, at the moment, 6 weeks. So how's that turning out for you?
Well, excited to be back in the biggest country in Africa, but in a land filled with good innovation that can propel Africa to sustainable development. There are good solutions, and I love Nigeria Jollof.
Oh, yeah. Thanks for that.
It's a good thing you say that,
very well.
because, you know, when you come from Senegal,
yeah, you're like,
are the original owners of Jollof.
Yeah.
You know, that is a very, very kind compliment. Thank you. I hope the Ghanaians did their hats out on that one.
Oh, they have no choice. So far, your stay has been, you've been enjoying yourself here?
Yeah, getting accustomed, trying to have the pulse of the country, the pertinence of our programs, looking forward on how UNODC can be better equipped to provide its technical assistance to Nigeria, expecting to do more work at the state level, because it's not only at the federal level that our work is needed. We are needed to do work at the local government level, at state level, and of course continue the effort that we've been doing for the last 20 years with the federal government of Nigeria.
So how has your work been so far? I mean, yes, there's a current report, but in terms of your experience carrying out your duties, how has that been turning out for your office?
Well, the office is not just the rep, and we have huge numbers of colleagues who are Nigerian and who have been quite at the forefront of bringing innovative ideas, aligning them with our technical menu of services to provide well-needed technical assistance to Nigeria. The small touch I brought in was to look at a vision I have, which is how under my leadership we can align and talk the walk when it comes to gender parity and gender mainstreaming in our work. So I developed a gender vision, which is basically the UNODC Country Office of Nigeria Gender Vision, which basically call on all program managers to look at the key indicators I set myself and make sure that gender issues are mainstream at the operational level, at the planning level, but also targeting them within our technical capacity initiatives.
Let me ask you this before we just come on to this. You've been around the world. I mean, in Africa and also here. What is it that you see that seems to serve an impediment to unleashing the innovative and skills and technical qualities of Africa's young population? What is that thing that we need to address to ensure that we unleash them to the world?
Well, I think that being myself an African, from Senegal, grew up in Senegal, had my studies in Senegal, but then further my studies elsewhere. I think we have a very creative, brilliant youth community. About 70% of Africa's population, West Africa population, is comprised of youth below 30. But again, issues that are systemic impede them to blow. And this is maybe one of the key elements that government need to take care. The future belongs to the youth.
Yeah.
Okay? Us at the age we have today, you know, maybe doubling our age might be challenging. So our impact will be what type of legacy should we leave to the children, to the youth, so that they can have better prospect than we did. And education is one of them, providing them health care, but also exposing them to the high areas of higher growth economically, like the creative industries, the agribusiness or digital world, and ensuring that the basis of government also is proactive by providing those skills. You see, when I was studying back in the US, a number of Africans, brilliant, they were there, and the dream was to come back, contribute. But then you choose an education field. When you're ready, you will see that it doesn't exist yet in the continent. So that adaptation, flexibility, agile absorption of those skills is quite important. And the only country I've seen a number of really good ideas in its initiative by the youth for themselves is in Nigeria.
Wow.
Look at the Afrobeat industry, the music industry, the cinema industry. It is everywhere broadcasted. So there is an influence also of Nigerian way of life to the rest of Africa. You go to South Africa, Zambia, or you go to Tanzania, passing by Cote d'Ivoire and Senegal, there is disconnection. And I think that we should harness those skills to the benefit of development, attaining the sustainable development.
That's our soft power, you know, permeating many other parts of Africa, not just the West African region, but I think more powerfully felt in the West African region. What I would like to know, though, I mean, is how that power can also be leveraged. Because here we are, well, you are heading the United Nations Office on Drug and Crime. And that is one area where we're not doing so well. In the stats, you know, looking at how we're combating drug and crime. It looks like the more we're fighting it, the more pervasive it is. I don't know, how do you see your assignment? Because you have talked about how you want to see gender mainstreamed in almost every area. Why do you think that, you know, it is important to have that gender mainstreaming in the fight against, reading countries of drugs and crime?
Because simple reason that I think the world has been ruled for many years by men, and you see the situation. And from our standpoint, removing my hat as a UN, but just being an African, when you invest in a woman, okay, the whole community feels it. And actually, the evidence of the survey shows that women are less inclined to take bribery than men.
Is that still the case?
Yes. Well, again, I will repeat myself. Maybe those respondents did not have the exposure in public service, which highlights a systematic problem where maybe we need more representation of women in public service to have an equal analysis of that element. But again, we have seen a number of great leaders around the world, among which some Nigerian spearheading some of the top chair institutions in the world. And they are doing a great job. So this is why I think it is important to have a gender dimension to what we do. But again, for proven record of efficiency as well, because it's not just coming from a wishful thinking, but facts are real. Second point, just to talk about the drug issue or the transnational organized crime. I mean, it's Africa is huge, and Nigeria is the biggest nation in the continent. But look around you. You have only Francophone-speaking countries.
Yeah.
And I think going forward, strengthening regional coordination and collaboration, putting ahead the border issues with communities that live along those borders will make a more peaceful West Africa sub-region, a more peaceful Nigeria, and more exchange of best practices. And I think this is where we have to put our heart on to say, okay, maybe the solution is not looking upward to the north, but we just have the solution right on our left or on our right, and fostering that cooperation with those countries at the highest level to combat transnational organized crime, drug trafficking, and ensure that this infrastructure upgrade that we are seeing in Africa, where today my shipment left Cote d'Ivoire 8 days ago, it's already in Abuja. The fluidity and the investment in corridors should also be used for development, trade among us, but also has to be done in a very safe and secure manner for our population. And the youth also, they have a very, 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 very big role on that.
So what particular areas do you intend to focus on? I mean, you've spoken about drugs, transnational crimes, which sometimes also involved endangered animals, which is another area that the UNODC has decided to take on, corruption. And I know that the UNODC has been playing a great role empowering some of our security agencies, training them, you know, making them more responsive, etc. What areas do you intend to focus on, where, apart from gender mainstreaming, of course?
Of course.
You know, in your tenure as the UNODC chief?
We'll continue to do what we are doing now, just to highlight some few big programs we have. We have programs in the Northeast because of the terrorism movement. We have a huge portfolio on justice. And just recently on the Human Rights Day, we had the first ever chess tournament between inmates and guards. And we had the honor to have Tunde, the Nigerian chess master.
Tunde Onakoye.
Exactly. So we'll continue to do that, because what I feel is that we need to go away with theoretical practices to look at more impactful initiatives that when you report on it, you can see that it has changed something. It has changed the narrative. And that's what I will be looking at doing with my team. We have numbers of programs on wildlife and forest crime. But again, as I say earlier, I see myself trying to do initiative with our mandates at state level.
At state
going
level?
Down to state level.
Okay, to the states.
Because the responsibility is not just the federal ministries or the federal government to fight corruption or to fight transnational organized crime. They've been doing very well. And actually, numbers of their international commitment are fulfilled. But the problem is, how do you trickle down those to state level, to local government level? Because those who are suffering from transnational organized crime or drug trafficking, drug abuse, they are part of our communities. So the communities also have a role to play, and this is why we will look at expanding our partnership with civil society organizations, women initiatives, youth initiative, and looking at how to really ensure that those policies that are existing do work.
All right. About this, your national survey on corruption, I see what you spoke about. 70% of Nigerians, including youth, refuse to pay bribe in one occasion.
Yes.
Talk to us about this.
Well, I think that's an indication. But just before I tackle that question, you see, Nigeria is among all countries around the world very advanced in this, because they have conducted a survey which is experience-based survey. It's not perception.
Okay.
In 2014, 2019 and 2023, and also in addition to this, all the peer review mechanism under UNCAC, the UN Convention on Anti-Corruption, had been conducted. So there are significant efforts from the federal government to fulfill its obligations on the issues of international instruments. Now, when it comes to this perception, I think we can look at it with two levels. That people are aware because of the prevention campaigns, but I would be inclined to say, just like me, people are fed up and asking for more accountability. And I incline to be more on that second point. And youth currently, because their future are robbed by corruption, because 1.26 billion US dollars paid in cash for bribery, which is 3% of the GDP, is a huge amount that can be using as a catalyst to ensure that the youth have economic opportunities for a better future, instead of getting swallowed by criminal organization or doing some unethical activities that later affect the credibility of the country.
All right, I'm going to take you to Lagos. Our colleague Ayo has got questions for you as well.
Well, thank you, Chamberlain. Well, one can't remonstrate the importance of what you're doing, and also underscore that it takes courage to even be able to put out this kind of data, particularly at this time. But, you know, to the question that Chamberlain asked the other time about 70% of Nigerians, of citizens refusing bribe, it's also striking to notice that in that same report, the refusal rates are highest in the northwest of Nigeria at 76%. Yet, the data we have says that that's the part of the country where poverty is highest. So it raises questions as to exactly what is the motivation for corruption, doesn't it?
Yeah, I mean, should I come in?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, no, I think that the motivation for corruption comes in different shapes and forms. Usual citizens are facing public offices, maybe in 4 levels of services. You have the health sector, education sector, and then interaction with law enforcement, but also other health sectors. And regardless of how a place is poor or not, again, people can use their offices to basically ask for bribery. And I think that's the main point. What are the mechanisms that can be put in place to dissuade that the poorest are the ones that are paying the price of corrupt behaviors? And I think that's the question that we all need to ask ourselves. Because if my child is sick or need education and I have to pay a bribe to ensure that he has equal footing, and I'm in a poor community, well, I will look for other means to collect that funds, maybe through completely illicit means. So I think that we need to look at the complaint mechanisms. We need to look at the pertinence of the policies, and this is why I say precisely that action is not just seated at the federal government. We need to go at the local government areas. We need to go to the state level, because Nigeria is a federal state, and everyone need to put hands on deck to ensure that this menace of corruption is eradicated. At least it will be diminished to better capture the potential of Nigerian population.
You know, there's something that I say sometimes, that the people who are in government today, who are in positions of authority, not just government, who are in positions of authority, whether in public service or private service, they were not in that position 40 years ago. So it raises the question of how it all came to be. So looking at your data again, I'm looking at the exposure by age groups. And I'm looking at the one that says that youths between ages 18 and 24 face slightly lower bribe prevalence compared to middle-aged citizens. That's at today, or at least as at the time of this reporting. 30, 40 years from now, what are the things that you feel need to be done to institutionalize anti-corruption, particularly among the younger generation today, so that 30, 40 years from now, we're not struggling with the same problem?
That's a good question. And I will just repeat what I told the youth during our anti-corruption event with the Minister of Youth at the UN House. And I gave the example of the trust-based societies. I'm sure most of you know certain countries have this trust-based society. New Zealand is one of them. Austria is one of them, where basically you are not to be reminded that you have to pay your ticket or you have to behave a certain way when you interact with communities. And numbers of us, we do behave very differently when we are at home in Africa than when we travel. And I'm sure that most of us here have taken the plane where we saw unruly behaviors at the airport. But as soon as the plane lands in those trust-based society, people align as if they were trained. So basically, we have aptitude to have ethical behaviors and to ensure that we are aligning with the best behavior that combat corruption. And I think that we just need to foster it with our youth, so that what they see or what their obligation of the parents also at home is engaged. And I think that we need to listen to the youth. We need to bring them in the decision-making process as well and engage them as champion of these changes.
Very interesting. But, you know, there's something that your report said about concerning the insights of decentralization. And you talked about going to the states and the local governments. Isn't that a potential solution? Is that a potential solution? Or could it exacerbate corruption by creating more layers of bureaucracy?
I don't think that corruption is a bureaucratic thing. I think it's a behavioral thing. It's an ethical thing. Completely. I don't think that it's even some of the it's a thematic area because it impedes development, right? But we all have a religious background. We have values, and we have to go back to those value system and not look at it as, you know, a programmatic approach. And when I say that we need back to local government, because they do have a responsibility. The first to have a connection with the population is at the local government before it end up in any minister's desk. Okay, and this core accountability also need to be reflected in the entire system, from the minister down to its employee, to the governor down to the police officer at the market, but also the responsibility need to be engaged at the community level with the head of communities, the head of families, but also the children at school. And I think that this is what we're talking about when we say that we need to ensure that the information get down to community level and to state level, so that basically we don't see the problem not being tackled from different angles.
Just one last one from me, and I hope you would be able to take this within the time we have. So this report focuses on bribe refusal somehow. So does this focus unintentionally ignore the citizens' motivations for paying bribes willingly? For instance, maybe the efficiency or fear of retribution?
Well, I think that there have been a clear methodology established by the National Bureau of Statistics of Nigeria, and it is based on the best practices around the world. And there was a steering committee, there was a governance body that looked at all elements and those questions that was included in this report. And I think that maybe what can be done in the fourth round of survey to take on your suggestion to look at more the motivation. But I can just, with the time that is left for us, to tell you that, you know, we have seen also increased prevalence of bribery act from the private sector. From 2019, it was at 6%, with an exponential increase up to 14%. So basically, it is not only in the public sector that this act happened, but also in the private sector, and it has been highlighted through the report.
So what's your advice in terms of how we should address global factors that contribute to corruption? Probably tax haven, illicit financial flows, and things like that.
Well, I think that first and foremost, you know, this complaint mechanism need to be maintained, improved, using the tech-savvy use to ensure that there is an integrity into the complaint mechanism, but also the response. Because more you reestablish the confidence with public officials, with the system, more people can come to reclaim their rights. The second element is that investment on educating people about what is their right, about what they should do, need to be at the center of the education system. Now, tackling the issues of illicit financial flows and anti-money laundering is a different concept of corruption in our work. This is the proceeds of crime or the illicit acquisition of wealth. And there are numbers of programs that UNODC is running to ensure that, first, law enforcement institutions are well equipped to identify, investigate, prosecute, and adjudicate financing of terrorism. And there are certain normative elements that have been put globally for people to respond on illicit transactions. The second element is international cooperation. And this is why I'm saying this. Today, you will see criminal networks are very savvy. They are 10 steps ahead of law enforcement. Today, if we are not working on an integrated approach in Africa, any criminal can say, okay, I'm going to do the crime here. I will go and invest at the neighbors next door, because maybe international cooperation will not happen at the speed of things to happen. And this is where we are promoting also to have this dialogue among West African countries. Just yesterday, we concluded a 3-day discussion where I brought 10 African countries in Nigeria to discuss about joint operation, how we can focus our attention on all this investment that is done to improve trade. Remember, Africa only trade at level of 5% internally, and we need to increase that.
Wow.
So there are a lot of opportunities to make money. Look at the increase in population, agro-business. Those people need to be fed. And I think that this is where we need to really put those reflection points, so that at the government they create an enabling environment and people also play their role. Because if there are rules, those rules are to be respected. And if they are not respected, the entire system collapses.
All right. We'll anchor at that point. Interesting. I think we should have a lot more of this moving forward. But thank you for coming on, Mr. Sheikh Sure, representative of UNODC, and all the best to you at the team.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
All right.
Thank you.
Business Morning comes up now.
Good morning. Welcome to 30 Minutes of Business right here, Business Morning on Sunrise Daily. I'm Ini John Mekwa. We start from what's going on with our Naira. And, well, we're still on a positive trajectory. We still see the Naira gaining, even though NAFEX did depreciate, lose about 1 Naira 79 kobo to close at 1,549 Naira 29 kobo. We did see that there was an intervention in the market as usual, which is what we have been seeing now since the creation of EFEM, the EFEM platform, by the Central Bank of Nigeria. We did see that there was an intervention, there was supply from the Central Bank yesterday towards the close of trade. The Central Bank played an active role, but there was still a depreciation even with the NFEM. We saw it did drop 1.31%. I guess we should also remember that at this time, the festive period, traditional of Nigerian consumers, there's a lot of demand for travels, for purchases of goods, especially at this time, gift items. Most of them are imported, so there's a huge demand on Forex at this time. And we see the Central Bank of Nigeria has been trying to fill in that demand, and well, for yesterday it did slip a bit. We saw 1.31%, but the good thing, we're still within a certain range since that creation of EFEM steadied the market around 1,545. That's what NFEM closed, while NAFEX was 1,549 at the close of trade yesterday. Away from the money market now, global oil prices were a little changed in Asian trade on Thursday as forecast of weak demand. We talked about that yesterday, and a higher than expected rise in the United States gasoline. U.S. inflation was out yesterday, still within the projected number. So market looking good. But for this morning, we see a 0.24% gain on Brent at $73.66 a barrel, while WTI did more than that, 1.13%, up $70.35, trying to catch up to Brent, reducing that normally $4 difference, which we would see between the two market. But China is a major driver of the market this morning. There's stimulus planned for next year. And then also yesterday, we did see OPEC cut its demand growth forecast for 2025 for the 5th straight month and by the largest amount yet. Of course, this feed into the sentiment. Also, United States gasoline and distillate inventories rose by more than expected, and then weak demand, which is expected that they will recover following what is going on with their plans right there. Now, we're still in the oil and gas sector. Good news for Nigeria. We did see OPEC said that oil production has increased to 1.49 million barrels per day. That's up from 1.33. So when we talk about curbing oil theft and some efforts around that, yesterday we told you how the NNPCL discovered about 17 illegal refineries and I think 10 pipelines and all of that. So hopefully these things will be sustained, these efforts will be sustained, and then we'll see the result right here, which is when we see oil production, crude production increase 1.49 barrels per day in November. And this should mean more revenue for the government, less borrowing, more FX, stronger Naira. So you see at the end of the day, everything concerns you and I, concerns our pockets. So we should be concerned. So this is good news. OPEC says that oil production in the country has gone up from 1.33 in October to 1.49 in November. We hope to see bigger figures in the nearest future. Nigeria's oil rig count has, however, remained unchanged as at November 11. Then I don't know how you want to see this, whether it's good or not so good news, but it's good news actually for Dangote Refinery. Yesterday, in partnership with Neptune Oil, they announced their first ever export of premium exports, motor spirit, that's PMS petrol, from Dangote, and it's heading to Cameroon. According to the President and Chief Executive Officer of Dangote Group, Alhaji Aliko Dangote, this first PMS export to Cameroon is a tangible demonstration of vision for united and energy independent Africa. Mr. Dangote believes that with this development, they are laying the foundation for a future where African resources are refined and exchanged within the continent for the benefit of the people in the continent. Well, for the director and owner of Neptune Oil, Antonin Zunge, this partnership with Dangote marks a turning point for Cameroon as they work towards energy security in the country. So, I mean, Cameroon will be happy, Dangote Refinery is happy, but what's happening to Nigerians right here? I guess one question that'll come to your mind is, do we have enough for domestic consumption? And now that Dangote has started his export, let's find out what Mr. Bismarck Rwani, Chief Executive Officer of Financial Derivatives Company, has to say about this. Mr. Rwani, good morning, and thank you for joining the program.
For having me this morning.
Great. So this is obviously good news for Dangote Refinery, but should Nigerians see this as good news?
It is good news. First and foremost, you make more money from exporting refined products than exporting crude. Two, it's Dangote Refinery is part of a conglomerate, what we call a sub-Saharan conglomerate that is competing in the global markets. And therefore, spreading the tentacles and diversifying your markets helps you to stabilize things. So Dangote is exporting to Cameroon. It's going to be exporting across the whole of West and Central Africa. It's a 685,000 barrels a day single train refinery, the largest in the world. Now, therefore, it is important for it to have markets. Alhaji Dangote not long ago visited Angola with a view to actually establishing some business links, especially a refining capacity in Angola. So if you have Angola, you have Cameroon, probably have Equatorial Guinea. That makes it extremely competitive and puts on solid footing. Don't forget that this is a $23 billion investment. We just heard yesterday that Uganda is trying to invest $4 billion equity only in a new refinery coming up. So basically what we are seeing is that refineries are becoming hub events. In other words, you have they concentrate in one area, like in Singapore, like in Houston, like in Mexico. Now we have in Nigeria. And covering certain markets. Why is it good for Nigeria and good for Dangote is that it earns dollars. It has more money coming out of the value chain than from producing and selling crude. Now, what follows actually now is what we call the infrastructure spend to make sure that we can evacuate products efficiently, store them efficiently, and also evacuate crude products to the refinery efficiently. And what we are seeing now is that no matter what has happened, the price of petrol, the price of kerosene, the price of diesel has been stable over the last couple of weeks in Nigeria, thanks to the Dangote refinery.
Mr. Rani, so you're saying that Nigerians should not be afraid that this could be a threat to the still very, energy availability and security that we are trying to get. I mean, we're just getting excited about consistency when it comes to supply. Yes,
the supply is consistent. We have enough capacity to produce for Nigerian market and for the West and Central African market. No question about that. The question is the logistics of getting crude, the payment system, so that the Dangote refinery has to be paid, has to get supply, and has to have the evacuation mechanism. I think all of that is in place. So these are early days, and I think the market will stabilize. But the beauty is that if you export crude, you probably get $70 a barrel from crude. If you refine crude into a product, you probably get as much as maybe $100 or $120 a barrel. That difference actually accrues, one, to Dangote refinery, two, to Nigeria's external reserves, and helps to ease the pain, as you were just talking about the exchange rate. After exchange rate appreciated in the parallel market by as much as 8%, something went by about 110 naira, and then all of a sudden it went back aggressively with a vengeance, and now we are seeing the naira selling at about 17.33 naira to a dollar. And that was already 1,600 about a week ago. So why is this happening? It's happening because of speculation and fear. The fact that we do not know when, people do not know when the next auction will happen. Central Bank is doing its utmost best to put supply in there, but there are structural defects in the market that need to be addressed. And typically at this time of the year, the naira appreciates because of three things. One, cocoa, main crop. Two, visiting family and friends. And three, the improvement in the market structure. All of these things should lead to an appreciation of the naira. But we went ahead of ourselves, and the market speculated that the naira was going to appreciate to God knows what. Now we are in that area of stability. It will depreciate a few naira, but then begin to appreciate gradually. Like I said on the news at 10, the currency appreciation is not going to happen significantly until about February 2025. So we shouldn't get ahead of ourselves on that.
I thank you for bringing us back to reality there. Let's not expect too much. Let's be realistic. But thank you so much for sharing your views with us this morning, Mr. Bismarck-Rani.
Thank you for having me.
All right, now we're going to have a conversation on food security. At this time, one big thing, the festivities, there has to be eating and drinking. That's a major part of it. But in the midst of this, we see that the issue of food insecurity is still very prominent in the country. For instance, in the first quarter of this year, it said that the number of food insecure Nigerians increased to 100 million from about 66 million in the first quarter of 2023. So year on year, we've seen about 40 million people are captured more in the area of food insecurity. So now that most likely there's going to be extra demand on food, then what is going to happen? Well, I tell you what, the Director of Corporate and Regulatory Affairs of Olam Agric, Olam Agric, a very big player in the agricultural space in Nigeria, he did say that the issue with food security in Nigeria is not about availability, it's about affordability. So we will delve into that. But let's take a break now and we'll come back on Business Morning on Sunrise Daily. Welcome back. It's still Business Morning on Sunrise Daily. We are now being joined by Mr. Aide. He is the Director, Corporate and Regulatory Affairs at Olema Greek, and he did share his perspective to share the issue with food insecurity in Nigeria is availability and not affordability. Mr. Aide, good morning, and thank you for joining us on the program.
Thank you very much for having me.
Great. So your latest views on this issue of insecurity, is it availability? Is it affordability? Could you help us understand?
I'm sorry, I'm struggling to hear you.
So you did say that the issue of food insecurity in Nigeria is availability, not affordability. Help us to understand your perspective.
Let me state something. We have an availability crisis and an affordability crisis. As we speak, in the last couple of months, we have been struggling to produce enough food to feed ourselves or to make ourselves food secure. And where we have done so, we have not been able, or the masses have not been able to afford same due to food inflation, amongst other things. So we have a food affordability problem and a food availability problem. But in the next couple of months, we will have a bit of what we call harvest across value chains. And then from there, we should be able to a large extent, be, I will say, partial food secure. There's a nexus between food security and national security. And it's important for us to dimension that and look at it further. I will go probably further into granular when we move more into the program.
Well, when you say in the next couple of months, I mean, this is the period where there's higher demand. We had harvest some months ago. We did see, inflation drop based on the harvest that we had earlier in the year. So when you say next couple of months, we're going to see partial food security, where would that be coming from?
Thank you very much for that. Let me give you a brief landscape, a brief introduction to the landscape. Nigeria produces about 60 million metric tons of cassava. We produce about 50 million tons of yam, 12 million tons of maize, and about 7 million tons of sorghum, among other staples. So production to a large extent is equal to consumption. So we might say, well, okay, we're self-sufficient in this staple. Okay, even though I spoke earlier about availability. But what happens right now is that we have an issue of cyclical production. Our production is not all year round, and that's where you have the gaps. So you have dry season farming, wet season farming. You don't have all year round farming, and that's where the challenge is. So let me give you a quick insight. A major staple in Nigeria that people speak to regularly is rice. We consume approximately 7.8 million tons of rice, but we grow only around about 5 million. So paddy production in Nigeria is approximately 8 million tons. That's roughly converting to about 4.8 million tons of milled rice. That's finished rice. The majority of this is consumed in rural areas as subsistence consumption. So the remaining 2.5 to 3 million tons are imported into the country illegally through land border. So that's the challenge we have most of the time. A lot of rice, particularly, is brought into the country illegally. So, and of course, that is where we have our issues. So I mean, I can go on and on, but let me stop there.
Well, we obviously know that apart from the, the wet and the dry season farming, the issue of mechanized farming could also help. We hear a lot of state government talk about this, but I wonder how effective this has been from your perspective.
Sorry, I'm struggling to hear you. But,
the issue of mechanized farming, I was talking about mechanized farming coming to help and breach the gap of this need of food supply.
See, let me contextualize once again. Mechanized farming is not farming for everyone. The likes of the Olams of this world, the flour mills of this world, the workers of this world, the growers of this world, the big players, yes, have farmers in their fold. Olam, for example, has 35,000 farmers in its fold, art growers. We do mechanized farming, particularly in the area of rice. Our rice farm in Nasarawa, for example, is 10,500 hectares, of which we have cultivated 4,500. But that 4,500 we cultivated is mechanized because we have the wherewithal, we have the heft to do it. But the small-scale farmer doesn't have that heft. He's organized in cooperatives, and the farmer, farmer mechanized input ratio is very low. It's among the lowest in the world. I was reading some time ago, maybe 3-4 months ago, where the federal government was speaking to the fact that they were going to import tractors and all that. So tractors, plowers, and all that. For me, government has no business in business. So I don't see any reason why the Ministry of Agriculture should concern itself with buying, with getting mechanization for farmers. Let the farmers organize themselves into cooperatives. Let the big ones like the Olams of this world, the workers of this world, the big major players in the organized private sector support them by helping them with inputs on the one hand, plowers and the likes. Let us have them in our fold. Then we can boost food production. And I think that's the way forward. All this buying tractors from X country or Y country, I think it's a bit of a time waster. And government should not be seen to be doing that. Government should involve the organized private sector in helping to address food security. Food security, like I said in my intro, is an integral part of national security, which is why you see on a recurring basis, Nigeria's National Security Advisor always at meetings where food security is being discussed. He understands the nexus between both. And I think we should take that very seriously.
Well, while we appreciate the place of big players like Olam, which you represent, what do we now do to the smaller farmers? I've had some women who formed cooperative, they're into farming and different rural parts. What do we do with them to make them effective? Because they can also contribute to food security in the country.
I like that very much. You seem to sequence your questions so well that one would think that I had your questions beforehand. And I know that you are for gender inclusion and inclusivity, but I agree with you very much. You see, what has happened in the last 5-6 years? For me, I don't want to sit down here and start speaking about the respective agricultural revolutions that have been brought about. You talk about Green Revolution, you talk about Operation Feed the Nation, you talk about, every government comes with its own mantra. A lot of mantras speak. And instead of them addressing the issues, they never do. All they do is they come and speak to the issues and throw money at it. There are women farmer cooperatives doing very well. And they're doing very, very well in their own fiefdoms. All we need to do is to bring them in. Inclusion, inclusivity. And I think the Office of the Vice President is doing that through there's a lady in that office who I think is chaperoning that. And you see, what I think we must do is to make sure that we have a sequence, a proper sequence. There's a problem of sequencing in our activities here and in our policies. And I've always spoken to that. We need to sequence properly. We announce a policy and we don't sequence post the announcement. We're never ready for what to do post that. Look at what I was speaking to earlier. Look at, I don't know whether we might be speaking to, maybe for example, wheat, for example. Maybe at some point that I want to use that to speak to other issues. Wheat, for example, is a temperate crop. Nigeria consumes around about between 5.5 to 6 million tons of wheat. We produce under 400,000. I'm being generous here. And the rest is imported. So our import bill on wheat is between $2.5 to $3 billion. That won't change overnight. You don't legislate production. You plan. And in planning, you bring varieties that can operate in our climate. And for me, I think that's where the organized private sector comes in, where we have trials in some countries, and those trials can be brought in to improve yield and effectiveness. Right now, as we speak, the likes of Jigawa and a few other states are doing very well in wheat, but for goodness sake, your consumption is between 4.5 and 5.5 million tons, and you produce only 400,000 tons. You haven't started. It has to be long drawn. It's a marathon, not a sprint. And we must stop throwing money at everything.
Are we on the track? I mean, it's a long-term thing, but are we on the track, on the right track, would you say?
You want to hear the truth from me? I will tell you we're not. We're not, because everything of ours, we play politics with it, and we need to stop that. Let us bring in the people who can do it. And you know what, for me, we should always have a dialogue most of the time, but half of the time we are in a monologue. Sometimes people are talking, organized private sector is talking to itself, government is talking to itself. There is no handshake. And when there's no handshake, you can't get anything done. But I'm one who believes that the current government, to be fair, have started well. But my problem with them in this area is sequencing. There must be cooperation and collaboration between Ministry of Agriculture and Food Security, Ministry of Environment, Ministry of Water Resources, Ministry of Finance, okay? And we should have that handshake. But right now, I do not see that handshake. I mean, if you as a nation cannot even speak to the gap you have in agricultural value chains across the country, then there's a problem. You don't have strategic silos anywhere. If you don't have strategic silos anywhere, if something happens, God forbid, you have a crisis in your hands. Look at Ukraine. Ukraine is at war and has been at war. But as part of Ukraine being at war, Ukraine is still producing wheat for the world. That is because there's a system that works, a system that is irrespective of any government that comes in. So we must do our policy sequencing properly. And that's where I agree with you that we need to involve the organized private sector. The organized private sector should ordinarily, on a quarterly basis or even bi-monthly basis, be conferring with government and telling them that this is what we should be doing.
All right.
In God I trust, every other thing is data. You can only plan for the people that you know.
All right.
So when we speak about food inflation being high, this being high and that being high, we know what the problems are. Let us address the issues.
All right,
in God I trust, every other thing is data.
All right, Mr. Adefeko, I really do wish, I want to do an open invitation to you, because I know that Olam is doing something about heat-resistant wheat, which is a major raw material for a lot of food that we do consume here in Nigeria, and a lot of it is being imported, and also the value chain. So I would like to do an open invitation to you to join us in the studio in a no distant time, Mr. Adefeko, so we can have a richer conversation. I wonder if you would say yes to this.
I never say no to you. I never say no to you.
All right,
so call me and I'll be there.
All right.
But in this festive season, let me enjoy the festive season.
All right, Mr. Adefeko, thank you so much. All right, we'll certainly reach out to you. Well, that's it for the food chain in Nigeria. Every day we keep talking about food security. How do we even achieve it? Being realistic. That's what I think we should do. So, let's head back to the Sunrise Daily studio. But I can tell you that the NG excludes positive yesterday. Mr. Rwani told me that because I'm wearing red, it's going to drop today. I pray not. I'll give you the stock market report later. But let's meet at 1 p.m. Business Incorporated. We'll do 55 minutes of business here on Channels Television. I hand you back to the Sunrise Daily team.
All right, welcome back to Sunrise. There are quite a number of things going on. Good morning, Laulu. Thank you for coming on today.
Good morning. Good to see you guys.
So let's review some of the scenarios playing out this week so far. Well, one of such is in the political space, the SGF's comment. He's come under intense response from the opposition party, who says, how in the world can he say there's no vacancy? And they think, no, We will show you that there's vacancy when the time comes, but that's gathering momentum, isn't it?
It is gathering momentum, and what I find interesting is that Nigerians, who are the people who should be calling the shots. We need to be understanding what is really going on here and what we ought to be part of. Those guys are just having fun. Really, politicians are having fun. They are doing their thing. They're trying to prepare the ground for who else is going to be in power, how they're going to remove the guy that is there, bring their own men Fridays. It has nothing to do with how to solve the problems of this country. It has nothing, zero, nil. They are not interested. Both sides, in my view, we haven't shown enough interest in sorting out the problems of the day. Otherwise, why is the SGF bodying himself talking about 2027? Look, Mr. President has not even spent 2 years yet. And then the opposition people too. Are they serious? Do we have a serious opposition in this country? We don't have a serious opposition. When things are dandy, when they are doing their sharing, they are all together, regardless of party, no ideological difference of any kind. So Nigerians should be wary of politicians. And this is the message that we need to keep putting out. Nigerians must understand that what will need to happen is not going to come from those politicians, except you compel them.
So how do you think Nigerians can understand that? Because it's not just a Nigerian political thing. It appears to be a global scenario. Because when these politicians do their thing, behind the scenes, they shake hands, they're friends. Yeah. But out there, you see, they pitch people against themselves so they can just climb and get one over each other. But the populace always falls for this bait.
That's the thing, So yeah, of course, a bit of this happens everywhere. But our situation is peculiar because, look, if you're looking at the level of...
Peculiar mess.
Exactly. The level of poverty, and all the challenges, even, insecurity, economic challenges, we are in dire straits. So we must not succumb to this politicization, the weaponization of the challenges to get in one politician and get another politician out. We must see beyond that. We must begin to speak a different kind of narrative about these things, just so we understand that, look, these are not the guys that are going to solve the problems. It's not the guy, and it's pretty early anyway.
Exactly, that was what I was going to say. Isn't this early and rather irresponsible for us to start hearing comments such as there is no vacancy in Aso Rock? Just barely a year. The president has yet to celebrate even 2 years. We're already talking 2027. Wasn't that an irresponsible comment?
Yeah, I share that view that, look, and it's also because it goes to the point that I make that these guys are not really... We don't have a profound public interest that is at play here. And that's what I want people to understand. That, look, don't get involved. I think it was Dele Farotimi that wrote the book, don't die in their war. Don't go and get yourself enmeshed in this thing, trying to be on one side or the other. These guys are using this thing to play up their own interest. If their interests were coterminous with the interest of the Nigerian people, fine. But where we are today, can we say so? Can we say that their interests are coterminous? It's not.
If it were just some person within the APC, within the party's ranks, who was not holding public office, someone who was holding an office as important as that of the SGF. Secretary to the government of the Federation, should we just sweep that aside and say, it's politics, it's their game? Shouldn't we call him out and say, Mr. SGF, this comment of yours is rather too early in the day, given where we are, given the seriousness of the issues that we're currently facing?
Clearly, because, I would have wished that the SGF would take care of issues. Look, in this country, the Federal Executive Council made a resolution that ASU should be removed from IPs. ASU members should be removed from IPs. It was the office of the SGF that did not transfer the information to the head of service. And so you have an head SGF who is not doing his job.
Wow.
Yeah. Mr. Nonuga was on his sources and said this openly. All Nigerians we had it publicly. I said you have an head SGF who is not doing his job.
Did you forget?
We don't know. We've not heard from his own side of the story. But what happened was that the memo was passed, in fact, President presided, and it took 10 months.
Wow.
for it to be implemented. It took 10 months, and there are other examples like that.
With the fate of lecturers hanging in the balance. I mean, these are lecturers, a lot of whom have complained their salaries are coming in drops and trickles and tricklets. You know, they are unable to hire new staff. You know, they are suffering a major brain drain. This sort of directive, you know, was not passed on. I mean, this is given the seriousness for 10 months, you say.
And the excuse was that the office of the head of service, you know, got the minutes, but there were no attachments, you know, to it for them to take an action, namely to write a circular.
But the head of service, isn't she a member of FEC?
No, she's a member of FEC, but it's the secretary to the government of federation that is the secretary of the cabinet, okay? So it's their job to convey, you know, the decisions, you know, to the head of service, who will then send a circular. It took 10 months. So those are the things that the SGF should go and worry himself, that who are the people in his office that are causing this kind of inefficiency? Mr. SGF, that's what you should be doing. Who cares what's going to happen in 2027? We still have a lot of time to get there.
Well, I do also know, I mean, I was going to say this is my favorite part of the program, but there are so many things that are currently bothering us. I mean, tax reforms are still very much on the burner. We're seeing all manner of, you know, conversations around it. We don't know where we are at, you know, with regards to that. We understand, for instance, that next week, the president could be presenting the 2025 budget. But if that happens, I'm just wondering, in your own estimation, do you think that the conversations that have happened so far with regards to the tax reforms could also affect how speedily or how unspeedily the 2025 budget is passed?
Well, I don't think that the 2025 budget will be that connected to the reform bills in such a way that it might affect it. I think the reform bills are much more, you know, long-term, you know, envisioning, you know, so I don't think that the budget itself should be delayed.
No. So I'm not really talking about the content of the budget. I'm talking about the fact that the waters of the National Assembly has been stirred. It's unsettled right now. You have people for and against, people who might, you know, be passionate about something or angry about something, or who think, look, it's time for us to, you know, show that we're not rubber stamp, so to speak. And holding that stance as they're holding it towards the tax reform bills, do you think it could affect the fate of the 2025 budget?
Oh, well, I don't think so. You know, but the reasons are quite exciting, because look, these guys want to call deals. You know, so you know the budget is as important to them, you know, as any other thing. Don't forget, that's where they put in their constituency budget.
So they have stakes.
Yeah, they have personal stakes. You know, their constituencies have important stakes, so they're not going to waste time, you know, because of the reform bill. No. I don't think that that's going to be a problem.
But I mean, haven't we seen former President Obasanjo, for instance, they booed him in the National Assembly at the time when they was trying to present the budget because of some previous scenarios that happened.
Right.
So is it that, yes, they may have stakes, so are we completely ruling out that scenario? Don't forget, too, some of those members who are opposing the tax reform bills say they want to be seen to be doing so by their people, so to speak.
Yeah, well, I think the real problem of the tax reforms those bills is that there hasn't been a political negotiation, okay? You know, because there are quite a bit of fundamental changes that are being, you know, proposed. So I don't know what the president's game plan is. You know, many people support the bills, but there has to be certain political conversations. And I'm not sure, you know, how the president intends to manage it. But the point that I think is also critical is that the National Assembly ought to be the place where all these things happen anyway. The idea that you have some of the legislators saying that, oh, no, you guys go and sort this thing. I mean, President, go and sort this thing with governors, and then when you sort it, just bring it to us. I find that to be totally irresponsible. This is an opportunity for the National Assembly to actually assert its own place in a democracy. It's in the National Assembly that these things should be called. That is where
is it that straightforward? Take place. Because in the same National Assembly, we've had a member who was there and told us they had agreed to take in fact, they took a certain position in agreement on a particular matter. Then, when they came to the floor, some governors then called their members. I think they were doing ACN days.
Right.
And then the group of ACN then took a separate position because they were called by their governors.
Right.
I mean, the president has been a former governor.
Yes.
He knows how the intrigues can be.
Yeah.
We've seen during former President Obasanjo's time the role of NGF. We've seen during President Jonathan's time the role of NGF. So this president also knows his dynamics.
Right.
So he too may be thinking, okay, I'll play this game. Maybe give them a certain scenario or a facade, but he knows what he wants to achieve with this.
Yeah, that's why I said that I don't really know what his game plan is. Normally, you will expect that the National Economic Council, which was where this thing really got messy, you will expect that National Economic Council that is presided over by the Vice President, who is the ally of the President, will never come out and say,
but it's one man.
Well, no, but it's not one man. He's the chair.
Yeah.
I mean, I sat in
Can
that
you overrule?
Not necessarily. But you have the finance minister. There are quite a number of other federal government representatives there. But I don't know, and we've not heard what happened to the vice president. I don't know how the vice president sat down in that neck, and they came out with a public denunciation.
So you see,
of the president.
How about this?
Don't forget. So my point, Chibali, so I don't forget is that.
Was it a public denunciation? Is that how you interpreted it?
No, it is because the president has sent a bill, 4 bills to the National Assembly, and next says withdraw them.
Well,
for that consultation.
No, that's the point.
Of forgetting,
it's the first. Well, no, it's the first time. I don't imagine that. Look, first of all, NEC is advisory, and it's chaired by the vice president.
Yeah.
So what happened when we were there was that the vice president will make sure that, okay, look, this is because the governors plan this thing before they come to the meeting. By the way, you will make sure that if this thing is going in a particular way that might embarrass the administration, you will find a way to push it away. Try and do something to buy time. At the very least, buy time for the president, buy time for the federal government. Not come out and say, well, NEC said that president should be... NEC is not supposed to be instructing the president publicly.
What does that tell you?
That's what I'm saying. And that's why I said I don't know the president's political plan.
Yeah, but
I don't know his game plan. Because, there must be some certain political conversations that we undergird those bills.
There are those who say that, if you look at it, it's actually quite ironic because first, the president is of the APC. He is, of course, so is his vice. The vice president is also from the APC. Majority of the governors too are also of the APC, and you would think that this tax reforms should have been a party agenda.
Yeah.
Sadly, it is not. When it comes to things like this, you will now find people playing the regional card. And you also have that within that meeting, the NEC meeting, you have 19 northern governors. Don't forget that 2 days before the National Executive Council meeting, northern governors had met, somewhere in Kaduna also, to say that they were not in support of the president's tax reform bills, saying it was inimical to their region. So taking that to the National Economic Council and the vice president being from the north as well. Do you think that was for him maybe a way of, buying time, as you have said, to say, hey, brothers, let's calm down here, And interestingly, it was Governor Seyi Makinde who read the resolution of NEC, a southern governor, who read what had been agreed that, some of our brothers are uncomfortable with this bill. So for us to be able to make progress, maybe we should withdraw it and then have more consultations. Do you think that was how a middle ground was arrived at?
Well, I don't think there was a middle ground. Look.
That was not a middle ground for you?
That was a middle ground.
A withdrawal is not a middle ground.
No. Look, the president is the head of the executive arm of government.
Yeah.
NEC is one of the bodies of the executive, which is supposed to advise the president. It's advisory. NEC is advisory. Look, we all know the rules of power. You don't advise your principal in public. No, you don't advise your principal in
but given the stance...
So what I'm saying is that, look, so the meeting has gone on. You are not compelled
to put that as part of the announcement
and say that the NEC has decided. There are other ways of... So the president had this news in the media. In the press. Come on. It's not tidy.
Okay, so...
It's not tidy at all.
And at the end of the day, I mean, the president also played up the fact
and the president said that, look, I'm the boss here.
Yes,
I'm not withdrawing the bill. Do you get?
But you see, there are some dynamics behind the scenes. So, yes, they may be on the same party, but a number of things play out here. The president might have said, yes, he knows what he wants to achieve with this, but before that particular time, don't forget, the local government autonomy, the governors were not happy with it.
They're not.
So they might have been waiting for an opportunity to get back at the president. So having known this himself, why would he now go and say, I want to consult with the governors, knowing that they are waiting for me?
Well, I think one thing that we should bring out in all of this is that the party system has been completely annihilated, destroyed. Because this is the same party. You have the majority in NEC, you have the majority in the National Assembly, but because your party has become, as it were, party operations is comatose. You don't even know when there's going to be NEC. You don't know at NWC what they are dealing with. The party chairman is struggling all over the place, or he's fighting his own bribery case. The party machinery, and it's not just APC, even PDP, even LP.
It's all but dead.
Dead. So these things don't matter anymore. And that's why I said for the first point that we said that, look, Nigerians must understand that this thing is just simple power play. That's all. And it's unfortunate that APC cannot put its house in order and say that this is what we want to do as a party.
But those tax bills, if you look at it critically, even though, look, some of the governors, they've actually read this. So they know what it entails. So whatever they're coming up with might be political.
Clearly.
Because they're going to get more money. And then they have to provide value for businesses in the states if they need to get more tax from them at the end of the day. So, because, in terms of, if we fast forward and this bill gets to the floor, what do you see happening? Because some say, yes, if it gets there, and there's a divide across North and South, are we saying that maybe governors of Niger or Kaduna, even Plateau, will they all toe the northern governor stance? You have some of them who will benefit and they say, look, let the bills pass. Middle belt. Are they all going to go the same way? Some of them will say, look, this bill will work for us. So in the past, at the end of the day.
Well, what I imagine and expect that will happen is that the president is going to have to step up. I like the fact that he has insisted that the bills should stay in the parliament. That's the right thing. But there has to be some kind of negotiation, and it has to be political. And we have to trust the president that he knows exactly how to do that, hopefully. Because if you look at it, the RAMFAC just came up with a statement which caught me by surprise. RAMFAC says, and it's true, I checked that in the Constitution, they have constitutional responsibilities around some of these issues.
And they were not consulted?
Well, a member of RAMFAC, a commissioner, is a member of the Presidential Tax Reform Bill that is chaired by Mr. Oyedele. But clearly, there is still a gap. Even though the RAMFAC is a member, there's still a gap because RAMFAC is saying that, well, look, the Constitution says that we are the ones that should make a determination on the allocation, even if it is based on derivation, whatever the code is.
What about what I said?
That's what the Constitution says.
What about what I then said? Because I see he's quoted today saying the role of RMAFC is to determine formulas for distributing revenue. It's under Section 162 of the Constitution that speaks to the role of the RMAFC as advisory. It focuses on federation revenue and VAT is state revenue.
So the point is that this kind of public spar is unnecessary. Oyedele and RAMFAC people should have had a tete-a-tete. They should have met.
Yeah, but don't forget, you said they are in the same committee.
That's what I'm saying.
So if some groups don't allow for it, do you think they will not stoke several other people to go and give your opinion on this.
Well, even Rafak has come and said that. Well, no, we are not saying that we don't support the bills.
There you go.
You know, but there's still a gap for consultation, effective consultation.
Can there ever be effective consultation in this country?
There can be.
Given the political stance of the governors?
Everything is time, so there will be timelines. Do you understand? There will be timelines. But I understand what you're saying. It was like when we were, when it was the Buhari administration, and the president said that, look, I'm not going to have an economic team that has private sector. And because of that decision, people said that there's no economic team. There is economic team. But what people are saying is that we don't recognize that's your team as a team because you don't have private. So Nigerians speak this language. Once something is not going your way, you just say there's no consultation.
Okay.
Do you understand?
Let me ask you this, and this is coming also, I mean, on the heels of all that has been happening, I mean, all that you have said, and we also had this not this week, the vice president, you know, kicking back at some of the comments of the leader of the Tories, Kemi Badenoch, in the UK, and, you know, saying, if you like, you can remove the Kemi from it. We are proud of you, but you don't have to denigrate your country of ancestry. I mean, Rishi Sunak was prime minister. He did not denigrate India.
Well, we should go and ask the Indians first, you know, because we are not keeping tab of what he said, you know, and I'm not saying head of state. I think the vice president tried to balance it up by saying that, you know, we are proud of her, which is good, you know, and of course, you know, we are not happy that Badenoch said those things, you know, but they are true. And I think that we should focus more on ourselves than trying to focus on people who are saying what is true about us that we don't want to hear. Those things are true. We have issues. So let's spend our energy.
Not all of them are true, because when she needed Nigerians in the UK, she went and was praising the country.
Yeah.
And then when
she's a politician.
So it's politics that she's playing.
Yes, that's what I'm saying. And that's why we shouldn't pay too much attention. I mean, I call it an irritation. It's a minor irritation that you don't want to pay too much attention to. Of course, it scratches you, you know, and then you move on.
Yeah, we scratched it.
You just scratch it and then move on. But we don't have to spend too much time. I mean, just like people also spend on Davido. Come on. These people are saying true. Yeah, we wish they didn't go into the public. But let us focus on the major. Look, we are in the middle of a major tax reform bill that is almost getting stunted. Something that we really need to talk about and sort out. There are major issues. I mean, look at what is happening in the judiciary. You know, we need to sort out the judiciary. We need the judiciary to be straightened out. You know, we have major issues. Look at the economy. But we'll be wasting our time with Badenoch and Davido. Come on. I mean, let's move on.
So let's not die in their war.
I like that. I like that.
Because these guys will do what they have to do, but who knows? We'll see what happens at the end of the day. Thank you for coming on.
Thank you so much.
I think we'll have some messages, too.
Indeed, sorry we left you out of this. I think you can help us with the messages.
Well, you guys were clearly having fun, and I didn't want to just, you know, get in the way of that fun. But, you know, we got this message from a couple of people who have sent in. Kidonchuku sent this one in, and this is what it says, particularly talking about food price, when we mentioned it earlier. Food price is proportional to the cost of logistics, security operatives, extortion, and multiple LGA taxes on transit. These are also contribute to post-harvest losses. Did you see the video where a lorry driver claimed to spend 700,000 naira on extortion and taxes from north to south? These have to stop. Rails have to work. And this one also from Professor Enakana says, the health and insecurities perpetrated by outlaws is consequent upon the prevalence of opioid abuse in Nigeria. This is devastating, severe, and far-reaching, having crossed the acceptable international threshold. The misuse of opioids leads to numerous health issues, including respiratory problems, depression, overdose deaths, and an increased risk of infectious diseases such as HIV, AIDS, STDs, and hepatitis due to unsafe practices. The very, very long one here from Jesus for the street, Yomi D. Let me just take a part of that one. Says, Nigerians need more information, education on finances, how to make money, how to invest money, how to save money. We need to do away with corruption mindset, being misled by our romantic desires to make wealth rapidly. On and on and on, that actually goes, and more of that you can see on X. I guess we can call it a wrap this morning, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Ayo Makinde. Do have a beautiful rest of your day.
Well, thank you for helping us with the feedback there, Ayo. Thank you for watching this morning and for sending in that feedback or those feedbacks. We look forward to more of them from you. And Maupe Ogun Yusuf.
Remember, don't die in their war. Goodbye. I'm Chamberlain.
We're very glad you could join us. Welcome to Newstrack on Channels Television. I am Bukola Kokan. These are the stories we're following for you this hour. And starting on a rather sad note, as two students of the Borno State